Welcome back, dear friends. Not to an English lesson, but to a moment of honesty. Let me ask you something strange. Have you noticed this? Your English doesn't fail everywhere. It doesn't disappear with everyone. It disappears only with certain people. You can talk. You can think in English sometimes. You even speak fine when you're relaxed. But the moment a fluent person walks in, a boss, a teacher, or someone you believe is smart, your mind goes blank. Today, we're not fixing grammar. We're fixing the real reason this happens. The strange pattern you can't explain. There is a very confusing pattern in your English journey that almost no one talks about, and because no one explains it, you start blaming yourself for it. You notice that your English doesn't completely disappear from your life. It doesn't fail you all the time. In fact, there are many moments when it works just fine. You can understand English videos, you can think in English when you are alone, and sometimes you even speak naturally without forcing anything. But then, out of nowhere, there are specific situations where everything collapses so badly that you start questioning whether you ever knew English at all. What makes this pattern even more frustrating is that it is not random. Your English doesn't fail with everyone. You don't freeze while talking to close friends. You don't panic when you're casually speaking with people who are at the same level as you. You might make mistakes, you might pause, but your words still come out. The real problem begins only when a certain type of person enters the room. Someone who sounds confident. Someone who speaks fluently. Someone you secretly label as smart, educated, or above me. And the moment you realize you are being heard by them, your mind changes completely. In that moment, your body reacts before you even realize what's happening. Your chest feels tight. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your thoughts slow down, as if your brain suddenly lost power. Simple sentences that you have used hundreds of times feel unsafe. Words you clearly know refuse to come to the surface. You start translating in your head, but even translation feels heavy now. It feels like there is a gap between your thoughts and your mouth, and no matter how hard you push, the words don't cross that gap. What hurts the most is this question that keeps repeating inside you. Why can I speak English there, but not here? You start assuming something is wrong with your intelligence, your memory, or your ability to learn languages. You tell yourself that maybe you are not made for English, maybe you are too slow, maybe others are just naturally better than you. But that conclusion is wrong, and it is damaging. Because if English was truly the problem, you would struggle in every situation, with every person, at every moment. But you don't. The truth is, your English never left you. It didn't disappear. It didn't suddenly get worse. What changed was not your language ability, but the meaning you attached to the moment. As soon as you stand in front of someone you admire or fear, English stops being a tool for communication. It turns into a performance, a measurement, a silent exam where you believe your confidence, your intelligence, and even your self-respect is being judged through every sentence you speak. At that point, you are no longer just speaking English. You are trying to protect your image. You are trying to avoid looking foolish. You are trying to prove that you belong in that space. And when language carries that much emotional pressure, the brain goes into survival mode. It prioritizes safety over expression. It blocks spontaneity. It shuts down fluency. Not because you lack vocabulary or grammar, but because you are afraid of losing respect in the eyes of someone you consider important. This is the strange pattern you experience again and again, and because no one names it, you assume it is a personal failure. But it's not. It is a psychological response, not a language problem. And once you finally understand this pattern, something powerful happens. You stop asking, "What's wrong with my English?" And you start asking the right question. Why do I feel so small in front of certain people? And that question changes everything. The real enemy is not English. By now, you might be expecting some explanation about grammar gaps, vocabulary limits, or lack of practice. But the truth is much more uncomfortable than that. because it has nothing to do with English at all. The real enemy hiding behind your silence is not language. It is the fear of losing respect. The fear that one wrong sentence might change how someone sees you. The fear that a small mistake could make you look less intelligent, less capable, or less worthy in that moment. When you speak English in front of someone you consider smart, your brain quietly turns the situation into a judgment room. You are no longer having a conversation. You are standing in an invisible spotlight. Every word feels like evidence. Every pause feels like failure. And every mistake feels permanent. Even before you open your mouth, you are already preparing for embarrassment. That pressure builds so fast that your mind chooses silence over risk. This is why your English feels smooth in low-pressure spaces and completely blocked in high-status ones. With friends, there is no image to protect, no reputation to defend. You are allowed to be imperfect, but with fluent speakers or authority figures, English becomes connected to your identity. You don't just fear speaking incorrectly, you fear being seen incorrectly. You fear being reduced to your mistakes. You fear being judged not for what you mean, but for how you say it. And here's the painful part most people never admit. Deep inside, you believe that fluent English equals intelligence. So when you struggle to speak, you don't think, "I'm still learning." You think, "They will think I'm dumb." That belief hits your confidence harder than any grammar rule ever could. It turns a simple conversation into a threat, and your brain reacts exactly the way it reacts to danger, by freezing. That's why forcing yourself to just speak more doesn't work. That advice ignores the emotional weight you're carrying. You're not fighting silence, you're fighting shame. You're not scared of speaking English, you're scared of being exposed. And until this fear is acknowledged, no amount of practice will feel enough, because every conversation feels like a risk to your self-respect. Once you see this clearly, something becomes obvious. Your problem was never English. It was the belief that your value depends on how perfect your English sounds. And as long as that belief stays, your mind will keep blocking your voice whenever the pressure rises. This is not weakness. This is not lack of ability. This is a protective response. The identity trap that silences you. There is a silent trap that keeps pulling you back into fear every time you try to speak English. And the reason it's so powerful is because you don't even realize you're inside it. This trap has nothing to do with pronunciation or fluency. It has everything to do with the role you step into the moment you open your mouth. Without noticing, you stop being a person who is expressing a thought, and you turn into a student who is being evaluated. The moment this shift happens, everything changes. You are no longer focused on meaning. You are focused on correctness. You are no longer present in the conversation. You are watching yourself from the outside, judging every sentence before it even leaves your lips. Your mind starts asking dangerous questions like, "Is this sentence correct? Is this word too simple? Will they notice my accent?" And while you are busy checking yourself, the natural flow of language completely disappears. This is the identity trap. When you see yourself as someone who is learning English, you feel safe only when you are correct. But language does not work under perfection. Language works under freedom. Children don't speak fluently because they know grammar. They speak fluently because they are not protecting an image. But as an adult, you tie your self-worth to how you sound, and the moment your identity feels at risk, fluency shuts down. What makes this trap even deeper is that you switch identities depending on who you're talking to. With friends, you are just you. You laugh, you explain, you mix words, and you don't care. But with fluent speakers, you suddenly become the learner, the non-native, the one who must be careful. And that label alone is enough to slow your mind, because you are no longer equal in your own head. In that state, even sentences you know well feel dangerous. Not because they are wrong, but because they feel too simple. You start avoiding clear words and trying to sound advanced, and that effort drains your mental energy. Your brain is doing too many jobs at once, thinking, translating, judging, and protecting your image. No language can survive under that load. The painful truth is this: the more you try to sound intelligent, the less fluent you become. Because fluency is not a performance. It is a byproduct of feeling safe to express. And as long as you see yourself as someone being tested, English will continue to feel heavy, unnatural, and stressful. But once you see this trap clearly, you realize something important. You don't need a new identity. You need to drop the false one. You don't need to become fluent enough to speak confidently. You need to stop treating English like proof of your worth. One shift that changes everything. The shift is simple, but it's powerful. When you speak English, stop asking, "Am I sounding smart?" Start asking, "Am I being understood?" That's it. The moment your goal changes from impressing to communicating, the pressure drops, your brain relaxes, and the words come back. You don't need advanced vocabulary. You don't need perfect grammar. You need permission to speak imperfectly. And that permission is what unlocks fluency. If your English disappears in front of smart people, remember this: your value is not hidden inside your accent. Your intelligence is not measured by fluency, and your voice deserves space, exactly as it is. You were never broken. You were just under pressure. If this video made something click for you, subscribe to this channel. Like the video if it gave you clarity. And comment below. Who do you feel most nervous speaking English with? I read every comment, and we'll work through this together. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.